I'm Andrew Morris from Sigillum Seals, and I curate and manage the collection called The Matrix. This is a collection of just over 4,000 seals, wax seals, that my father and later years myself collected over the period of 30 years, has now amassed into this collection, which is very wide in its scope, both in terms of subject, materials used, and the social history side. So I thought today I might just give a brief overview as to how the Matrix collection came about and the importance that my father had in its beginnings, early days anyway. So my father, who was an avid collector, I lost 2 years ago. We lost him. Since then, we've been unraveling some of the quirks that the collection had, and to learn a bit more about what it was that my father liked about collecting. He was a great collector. He previously collected Scottish provincial silver, and over the course of 20 years pretty well amassed everything that was worth anything to him anyway, from the Scottish provincial silver side. And he then had a 2-day sale of that collection, and I think he came out of that sale and thought, well, that's great, now what do I do? It was probably at that point two silver seals that he had either recently bought soon after the sale, which made him realize that actually seals were a subject that would give him plenty of scope for collecting, and that one that he would never find that he would get to the end of. So from the early days, he collected some of the finest seals within the collection, I have to say. I think the collecting side of it then was different from now. The number of collectors was a lot fewer. I came to appreciate the collection probably 25 years ago, when I came back into the same part of the world as he was in. At that point, the collection really was quite large, and we spent a lot of time trying to work out how the collection could be reduced in its size, and then set parameters perhaps for the future of the collection. So we had a number of, well, for want of a better word, culls, where we would go through the collection and try to be as regimental as we could as to which ones were going to stay in, which ones we were going to offer elsewhere. And in theory it worked. However, in practice it was quite difficult to part with some of the seals that he had known for some time. We did carry out a few of these culls. The collection started to reduce in size. Then we came up with the necessity to catalogue the collection. And this was the area where I started to have an influence, perhaps, because I was able to photograph every seal and to work with Dad in formatting a methodology for keeping an information sheet for each seal, which was labelled with the same number as the seal itself. We then had to start from scratch. It took a long time, but we eventually arrived with a collection of A4, the full scap folders, each one containing 100 seals, and each seal had its own number, and then it was categorized and put into their own categories. It was a lengthy process, but it was done, and I have to say it still is done because it works. But what we didn't have at that time was any form of database, electronic, and we really felt that this was an area that we had to go through, because trying to find one seal relating to, for instance, the Duke of Richmond, we knew we had one, didn't know where it was. So we devised a database, and I went through and put keywords against each seal in the database, which enabled us to find a seal in the category, and then in the category by its number. So we then continued with that. alongside the purchasing of seals, because we were still able to find seals that we valued, and the numbers within the collection started to increase again. Quite simply, the purchasing of seals outgrew the disposal. So we had a net gain on the collection. So we got to 5,000 seals. We were due to do another severe cull. It was nothing that we looked forward to doing because it was a difficult decision. However, we had the lockdown 2020. My father became ill pretty soon after that and sadly passed away in 2021. So that process never happened. And then since the passing of my father, the collection has passed into my hands to curate and to manage. I do that. I have to admit that when I first took on the role, it was quite overwhelming simply because of the numbers involved. What does one do with a collection where the main protagonist is no longer part of? And in time, we then devised a strategy to deal with the collection in its rather swollen form. When trying to reduce the collection, it became necessary to know where every seal was and to track each seal. So, for example, in offering seals, we would, for instance, send 30 to an auction house, 20 would sell, 10 wouldn't meet perhaps the reserve price or just simply weren't wanted at that time. So 10 would then come back, and every part of that movement had to be recorded in a way that I had to know where every seal was, because I could see that if all these seals were going to different auction houses, some coming back, then being reoffered, it would very, very quickly get out of hand as to how many seals we had and where was that seal. So today we have a situation where I feel less overwhelmed by the collection because the strategy that myself and my wife and other members of the family managed to work out. It means that rather than just having 5,000 or 4,000 seals to deal with, I now have a number of seals which go to a certain place, a number of seals which go to another. So for instance, the French seals, the chances are they would do better in France than they would in this country. Not true for all the seals, but in general terms, that would be true. Same with Germany. The German seals would probably do best in Germany. The Scottish seals went to Scotland because we suspected, and I think it proved right, that that was probably the best place for them to be sold. So you can see that by allocating certain seals to certain venues, the overwhelmness of the collection reduced. And so we then had an easier task as to what to do. These different types of categories, or these different smaller parts of the collection, will over time reduce the overall size of the collection. The emphasis is not entirely to do on the commercial side though. One of the big aims of Sigillum Seals from the outset was never to maximize money, because we felt that my father, he collected it not just for those reasons, and I'm keen not to do it for those reasons either. And we feel that an obligation and I have to say quite a passion towards using the opportunity to do other things with the collection other than just offering it to other people to buy. I see that our position in the industry, in our sector, as being able to educate others who, of a younger generation, probably don't appreciate the importance that not only seals but letter writing as a whole has had. The concept of a tangible letter made of paper with handwriting, the stuff that we would have known for a long, long time. I don't think the younger generation appreciate the importance of that, and the importance of seals. Seals were not just a form of shutting a letter. A seal says so much more than that. I would be very, very keen to let the younger generation know something about the importance of seals, what they meant to the individual, but also to the company perhaps that they represented, and the official nature of them. I think also that children, especially children, probably have no concept of the idea of having to engrave anything. You know, these are all skills which are dying out, which I really would like to have an input, however small it might be, in trying to secure at least the number of skilled engravers in this country, certainly, which can continue the art of engraving, whether it's on seals, whether it's on silver, or whatever. So I see one of my roles is to educate by encouraging people to continue that skill of engraving, to educate the young people as to letter writing, and I would like us to have some ability to air the opinion of other collectors of seals who don't have that voice, and collectively we can. These are areas that over the next couple of years that we want to develop further. They're areas that I think my father would very much encourage, and they would ring true to his values. It's a privilege to be able to do that on his behalf. And I have a cracking team, as you'll see from the posts. I have a cracking team around me. We're very, very close-knit as a team. We're all ambitious in our aims. So I hope that you've enjoyed this short presentation, and you will continue the journey with us in our further posts.